Welcome to the Pastoral Perspectives Podcast. Our aim is to help Christians grow spiritually by bringing pastoral wisdom and biblical clarity to important issues of Christian faith and practice. Each episode offers a thoughtful, biblical, and pastoral take on a matter of Christian theology, church life, spiritual growth, or cultural relevance that is shaped by years of local church ministry. Pastoral Perspectives is a ministry of the pastors of Vista Bible Church in Lafayette, Colorado. Hello, friends and viewers and listeners. Welcome back to the 6P. This is the Pastoral Perspectives Podcast with Pastors Peterson and Putoff. Actually, it should be Putoff and Peterson, so we'll just flip those around.
Oh, I'm lead billing, huh?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Everybody knows.
That's not on our logo. We should get that on our logo. Putoff really big.
Now, Zach, I noticed
Peterson really
as I'm
little.
looking at the camera here, you're taking up less room on the screen.
Oh, am I?
I don't know.
Optical illusion. I don't know. I'm working on my frame and my figure.
I can see it. I
You
can
can
see the
tell?
difference. I can see the difference.
It's hard to tell on a day-to-day basis, so that's nice.
There we
Someone
go.
else can tell.
You make me feel a little less skinny now.
That's my goal. That's my goal in life, to make you feel less skinny. That's why I'm.
Thank you. Thank you for loving me in
That's
this
why
way.
I'm working on myself so hard. I do love
Okay.
you, but
Yes.
that's probably not enough motivation to do what I'm doing
Oh.
to make you feel skinny or not as skinny.
Okay.
Anyways,
All right.
we can talk about that later.
I choose not to be offended.
In a separate episode,
Okay.
we'll talk about Kyle's self-image and how my weight loss should help it.
All right. Today's episode is not about that.
I'm not taking any of those things either, those injections. I just want everyone to know that. I have had questions. Am I taking the shot? I'm not taking the shot. I'm eating a lot of blueberries and protein and things like that.
Also working out. Okay.
Also doing some workouts.
Okay. Well, none of you are watching this for Zach's diet and exercise, but I
Yeah.
just thought I'd point it out. You see it. You
Thanks.
see it. Okay.
Thanks for
So today
that.
we are talking about
Not that.
not that. Do you as you're listening to this, watching this, when you think of Israel, you think of the Old Testament Israel, like what was their biggest problem throughout their history? You had to say in one word.
I'm assuming you're not going for like obesity or something like that.
No.
It's not some segue.
No,
Okay.
no. But
Well,
how would you think of answering that question as a listener? And then now we'll give you our answer in this episode.
yeah. As a listener, I would say, I guess my mind would run to just a failure to obey God's law, a failure to love Him above all things, right? A failure to not worship Him as the only God of their hearts and of their nation and all of that. So I know what we're talking about today, but I think that's probably some of the stuff I would say.
Good. That's not one word, but
Right.
It was very
you
good.
asked for one word. I'm sorry.
but if you had to boil that all down, you could say idolatry,
Definitely.
right? In one
Yeah.
word.
Yeah.
Idolatry. So what we want to do here in this episode is talk about modern day idolatry. What do we need to learn about idolatry in our lives? What does Israel teach us? What does the Bible say about it?
Mm-hmm.
So first of all, just a little bit of a look at Old Testament idolatry. What was Israel dealing with? What was the mindset of the nations around them back then? So all the nations surrounding Israel back in that day, in the ancient Near East, they believe in some form of pantheon of gods, right?
Mm-hmm.
They had to be worshipped and placated in order to obtain their favor.
Yep.
And so that's going on all around them. And so that's why the first commandment is what it is, right? That's one of the big reasons, right? Because
And they really accredited every blessing that they would experience culturally, societally, familially, all that kind of stuff to some
Yep.
God of some sort.
To one of the gods over this or that
Yep.
particular area of life. So the first commandment is completely against that worldview
Yeah.
of the nations, and it sets Israel apart. It set them apart, and there's constantly for them this intense temptation to give in to or compromise with these religions of the nations, which again just makes that first commandment really important. You shall have no other gods before me.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And then what's the second commandment?
Second command comes right after that, right? It's you shall not make for yourself an idol. There's that word, or any likeness of what is in heaven above, or on the earth beneath, or in the water under the earth. You shall not worship them, the idols, or serve them. So, first command is you only worship God. Second command is related to that, and it's you should worship God in the right way, not use idols, not use these statues and these images and whatnot as if they represent who the true God is. Don't worship like the pagans do. Don't use idols. Don't worship them or serve them. Is the idea. So
Yep.
Not only was Israel not to worship other gods, they were also not to worship Yahweh in the same way that the pagans worshiped their gods.
Yep. And so along with that, like in terms of how these nations worshipped, they believed the presence of their gods was in these graven images, these statues that they employed. So
they mediated the presence of the God.
It's not like the only manifestation of their gods, but it was like the means through which they could harness that God's power. And so people really came to believe they could manipulate their deities into serving their own purposes, which is obviously it makes sense why God wouldn't want Israel to worship him in that way, because he cannot be manipulated and controlled and stuff like that. So that's important.
Let alone he exceeds all the categories they have. He's totally different, totally distinct, utterly unique.
Yeah.
Nothing like them.
Yeah. So one common example in the Old Testament of where you can see this sort of interplay going on, or this sort of thinking, is in 1 Samuel 5. That's when the ark gets captured by the Philistines, and they bring it into the presence of their god Dagon, which is just a statue. And you can see the way that they're sort of treating the ark, treating their idol, and God just says, I am so much greater than him, casts down the statue and all that. Shows that God is supreme and he can't be manipulated and so forth.
Yep.
But anyways, that's sort of the thinking that was pervasive in the ancient world all around, except for Israel. This is what people were thinking.
Yeah. And it makes sense of like, when you see in Exodus 32, Israel's been brought out of Egypt. They've been brought into the wilderness. They're at Sinai. Moses is going up to receive the law. He's taken too much time up there. He's been gone for too long, and the people are getting really antsy and afraid and fearful that maybe he's left them and maybe God has left them and whatever. So what do? They, Aaron collects all this gold and all this stuff, melts it down. They craft this golden calf, right? Which to us is just so weird.
Right.
But it was a very common idol in the surrounding area. The other nations had this idol, Baal, which took different forms and whatnot in different cultures, but Baal was like a very common idol. And so you notice they're in Exodus, it's strange, but they're worshiping this golden calf and saying, this is Yahweh. This is the one who's brought you out of Egypt. And it's because they had this idea that you could access your God through an idol. So that's what they were trying to do. They were trying to access Yahweh, but through an idol.
Right. Yep.
And obviously that repulsed the Lord and provoked his anger and all of that, and he utterly rejected that, because you can't use living things to depict the one true and living God who made all those things,
Yeah. Or just created things,
they-
even if it's not a living thing.
Right.
Like,
Well,
it's
yeah,
just any
yeah.
created thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Anything in all creation doesn't even start to accurately depict and illustrate who the true God is.
Yeah. Yeah. So in the second commandment, after he says, yes, after he gives the command, he continues. He says, "For I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God." So here's why. And this isn't the sort of sinful jealousy that
Right.
we deal with between one person and another, and towards another, but instead it's like holy, perfect
Right.
jealousy, pure jealousy. And our jealousy is unwarranted because we're not deserving of glory,
Right.
and that we're often seeking to ascribe to ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
But God's jealousy is completely warranted because he does deserve absolute glory and fidelity and devotion and love and all that. So failure to give God that level of devotion is sin.
Yeah.
So Israel's failure to obey the second commandment it's evidence that in their hearts they're thinking Yahweh is not supreme on some level. He's not singular, holy, the only one, not sovereign, and all these things in their hearts and in their minds and in their lives.
Yeah.
So to worship these pagan gods was to commit spiritual adultery against the Lord, who had redeemed them and brought them out of Egypt and all those sorts of things. So
that is the language of the Old Testament. It's adultery. It's adulterous sin, spiritual adultery, to use idols or to worship idols, to incorporate idols into your worship.
Yeah, right. Well, that just helps you understand how serious it is,
right?
Because that's something we can connect with as humans who are married. Most of us, or many of us, I shouldn't say most of us, but many of us are married. We kind of understand the level of betrayal that happens in adultery. So, okay, so that's Israel. That's their idolatry in the Old Testament.
And that's just their problem.
Yeah, we don't deal with that.
So we can wrap it up.
We have no statues. Obviously not. So are we free of the problem? Here we find ourselves in 2026 at the time of this recording. We are modern people. We are advanced people.
So advanced.
We don't worship through statues or little carvings or have them hidden in our closet. And as Christians, we certainly don't, right? So I think sometimes the vast difference between their culture in the Old Testament and our culture today, it can cause us to sort of think there's not a whole lot to learn from Israel's idolatry, and or simply, as long as we aren't affirming the existence of other gods, or worship statues, as long as we don't do those two things, then we really don't need to think much about the issue of idolatry.
Yep.
And so that's kind of what we want to talk about more here. Modern day idolatry, more than worshiping statues.
Yeah, that's good. And it's interesting, in the New Testament, right? Years removed from Moses and the Exodus and the rebellions in the wilderness and all that kind of stuff.
And after the cross.
After the cross, even, New Covenant era. Paul says, for example, in 1 Corinthians 10, speaking of the things that took place back there in the wilderness, the idolatries of the people and all of that, he says these things took place as an example for us, 1 Corinthians 10, 6 and 7, that we might not desire evil as they did. Do not be idolaters as some of them were. That's the command. Don't be idolaters as some of them were. You could say, well, first century, there's still a lot of literal, tangible idolatry going on. But the principle is that the things that went on there in the wilderness are timeless in their instructive value for the church.
Yeah, right.
Paul's not just saying to the Corinthians, don't be idolaters. That's the Holy Spirit speaking to his church in all the ages.
Amen.
Don't be idolaters, as some of them were.
Yep.
So their idolatry is a negative example for us. They can teach us, their failures can teach us, and we have things to learn about our own idolatries today.
Yeah. Another New Testament letter that talks about idolatry is First John, which when you first think of First John, that's not the first thing that pops into your head.
Right.
But if you're familiar with the book, the very last verse of the book, the last thing that he says, this is chapter 5, verse 21. He says, "Little children, keep yourselves from idols." And that's how he ends the letter. And
Yep.
it seems to almost come out of nowhere to me, at least it has in the past when I read it. And it seems intended in part to like leave us hanging with a sort of unsettled sort of feeling, like leading us to like consider what he just said very carefully. It's almost like a Selah in the Psalms or something,
Yeah.
keep ourselves from idols,
And it I think he's saying that's one of the messages of the whole book.
Right.
It's not just his tag on.
Mm-hmm.
It's what he's getting at throughout the whole thing.
Yeah, that's a good point. So, keep ourselves from idols, but we as Christians, we worship the one true God. We don't have statues. We don't have them hidden in our closets. We don't worship images, most of us.
Right.
But then John leaves us with this sobering command and warning, really. So that's something to consider. This is to New Testament believers after the cross. And so something to consider. So that's kind of what we want to do in this episode. Let's consider.
And it's interesting there in First John, right? Because the situation he's dealing with there is you have these professing Christians who are essentially redefining Christianity. They believe in Jesus, but it seems to be some like proto-Gnosticism. They believe in a Jesus who wasn't truly man, and that the things you do in your physical body aren't that bad, and so you can sin and do whatever you like. And so he's dealing with these kinds of things, and yet they're also saying, oh yeah, we like Jesus. Jesus is great.
Right.
But they're redefining him. Their version of Jesus is an idol.
Right.
And so it's not just, do you believe in Jesus by name? It's do you believe in the true Jesus? Do you believe in the true gospel? Do you believe in the truth about him? So you can believe in Jesus, quote unquote, and still be an idolater, as I think John would say many of those people were being.
Yeah, good. One more passage to consider here before we kind of bring this all together is this one comes from the Old Testament, from the prophet Jeremiah. And it's important because it kind of gives us a connection point between Israel's idolatry and ours, because it shows what's kind of going on under the surface. It's going on at the heart level, spiritually, right? So this is Jeremiah 2, verses 11 through 13. He says, "Has a nation changed gods when they were not gods? But my people have changed their glory for that which does not profit. Be appalled, O heavens, at this, and shudder. Be very desolate, declares the Lord. For my people have committed two evils. They have forsaken me, the fountain of living waters, to hew for themselves cisterns, broken cisterns that can hold no water." So
It's a powerful image.
yeah, what's going on there, Zach?
Well, the image kind of tells you what an idol is, right?
Yeah.
An idol is a broken cistern, a broken jar, a broken container that you're trying to fill with water when right in front of you is the fountain of living water, this endless spring of living water that never runs dry. You have that right in front of you, and you'd rather have the water in your little broken clay pot, broken glass. The difference is your container can't hold the water, can't hold any water. It's leaking. It's going to be dry pretty soon. It's not going to satisfy you. It's not going to fill you. It's going to run out as fast as you can fill it. And that's what an idol is. It's a cheap substitute for the real thing, the real and true God.
Yep. Yep.
So water gives life, right? Water is life to our bodies. Water satisfies, it quenches your thirst and all of that. And God is the fountain of living water. He's the fountain. So to worship an idol, you're trying to drink from some other place.
And you're not getting anything.
And you're not getting
Yeah.
nourished or fed or satisfied.
And all you need to do is turn to the fountain and just drink straight from the fountain, you know? Yeah. There's a famous quote. It's used often, but it's so, appropriate for this sort of discussion. And C.S. Lewis, I'm sure you've heard this before, but he says, "We are half-hearted creatures fooling about with drink and sex and ambition when infinite joy is offered us. Like an ignorant child who wants to go on making mud pies in a slum because he cannot imagine what is meant by the offer of a holiday, like a vacation at the sea. We are far too easily pleased. We'd rather have the little broken jar than just drink from the fountain,
I don't usually do this, but I'm going to throw one of my kids under the bus here for a second because it's such a good illustration of this. We're far too easily pleased. So our daughter Paige, I forget how old she was. She wasn't old. I want to say 5, 6, somewhere in there.
She'll forgive you for sharing this then.
Yeah, I love Paige. She's great. But we were going to McDonald's one day, and we saw on the McDonald's, this is years ago, right? So I don't go to McDonald's anymore. But
obviously,
but we saw a sign on the door that said, like, next Tuesday, Ronald McDonald is going to appear and take pictures with the kids and all of that. She was so excited. Well, the problem was that next week we were scheduled, we were going out of town. We were going on vacation to Disneyland. So,
oh man,
we were going to miss Ronald McDonald. And so we told her, "Oh, Paige, we'll be at Disneyland." And Paige, who's usually very mild-mannered and chill and, very level-headed, really broke down at McDonald's before the food, right? I break down after the food, but she broke down before the food and was just devastated that we weren't going to see Ronald McDonald. She wanted to see, and we were like, "Paige, we're going to be in Disneyland." And that didn't console her. It didn't really comfort her. But so I'm not saying Paige is an idolater, but it is an illustration.
It's a great illustration.
Ronald McDonald, a picture with Ronald McDonald or Disneyland. What would you rather?
This goofy clown with red hair and painted white skin, or what's her favorite Disney character? I don't know. But
it was, I'm sure at that point it was princess. Yeah.
All the princesses you could possibly imagine.
Every princess on earth.
Yeah.
It's going to be in Disneyland.
That's a really good example. Good job, Paige.
Good job. Paige provided good content for the pod today.
There we go. So, but, as you look at that whole image of broken cisterns and the fountain, you start to really get at the true nature of idolatry.
Yeah.
Right? So what is modern day idolatry? What are the idols we have to be on guard against? Because, rather than physical statues representing like a false god, they're idols that reside within us, in our hearts. They're like desires that drive us to seek pleasure, satisfaction, or meaning in things other than God himself, is one way to put it. And they can even be like desires for good things that God's made and intended for our good and our enjoyment. But then in our hearts, we elevate them sinfully and idolatrously to like a place above him in our hearts and in our estimation and in our thoughts and all that sort of thing. And then our desires for them become like controlling desires to where they're ruling us. Yep. They're running us. And we're willing to sin in order to lay hold on those things.
Yep.
Yeah,
that's good. So, I think for our context, that's a much more helpful way to think about the nature of idolatry, right? There's the valuing things but then there's the heart that values those things, and
Yeah.
that's really where the idolatry takes place. You want something more than God, is what it comes down to.
Yeah.
So, like friendship, the desire for friendship, can that be a good thing?
Oh, yeah.
I think we'd all agree it could be a very good thing. We all want friends. Most of us want friends and acceptance and things like that. That can be a totally good human desire.
Yeah.
It can also become an idolatrous desire if you're just willing to change who you are and morph into someone you shouldn't be and sin and,
Yeah.
throw aside your convictions and all of that to get friends. That's an idolatrous craving for friendship. Sexual pleasure, the desire for sex, that can be a good thing, right? It can also become an idolatrous thing if you're willing to go pursue it in places God says we shouldn't pursue it.
Right.
Sexual pleasure is meant for the covenant of marriage. If you're going outside of the covenant of marriage in any context, any way, to go get sexual pleasure, you're idolizing that. You're worshiping it. You're desiring it above the Lord.
And to even illustrate like that this is such a heart level issue, even in a marriage, sex can become an idolatrous sort of
no
thing.
doubt.
Even within the confines that God has ordained. Our
No
hearts
doubt.
can desire it too much, to where we're doing things we shouldn't do to get sex or whatever with our spouse, or, things like that. So it's really a dangerous thing. Our hearts are a dangerous place. They can be a dangerous place. Other examples, like the desire to have a family, whether it's to eventually be married or to have kids, that can be a great thing. It's a good thing. It can also become an idolatrous thing.
Yep.
Where
You're just not happy unless you have it.
Yeah, I can't.
Not joyful, not rejoicing unless you have it.
Right. Or like another common one I would say that we don't think about too much is like a hobby, either to enjoy a hobby or to improve a hobby. That can be a good thing. It can be a good desire, but it can also become an idolatrous thing. What's another common one?
You want to do well at work, right? That can be great. That can be a totally good desire. If it then leads you to neglect your family and cut corners and cheat and step on people and all that kind of stuff to climb the ladder, at your business or in your industry or whatever it is, that's obviously an idolatrous desire.
Yeah. And for the Christian, I think the most dangerous and probably most insidious of those is the neglect part. Like just always working, yeah.
And you notice what we're not, this is where idolatry is tricky, because it's not just, we're not just talking about craving wicked things.
Right.
We're not talking about craving evil things. So, evil things, bad things, things God says are bad and wrong. Those can be idols too. But in these examples, we're talking about good things, that become too big, too important, too valuable to you. So obviously the sinful things, we can say, obviously those are wrong, but you could insert anything into this, any human relationship, any person, any desire, any craving, and it can become idolatrous, can become too important to you.
Yeah. Yeah. So the fact is, as you think about what can we learn from Israel and from these New Testament passages that warn us about idolatry even, is to understand that idolatry is a heart issue. It's a worship issue. It's not limited to worshiping physical images like we talked about. It's exalting things that we have or that we want to have or experience or whatever. Exalting things above God, seeking our ultimate joy, fulfillment, and satisfaction in things other than God, or worshiping him in a way that's contrary to his word and to his character.
Right.
So, and that's really important to understand, and why we would want to talk about this in an episode, because as Christians, we have to do battle with not just our actions, not just what we do, but like foundationally with our desires, what's going on in the heart. We have to deal with that.
Yeah, Peter has this line in 1 Peter 2 where he says that we're to abstain from the passions, the strong desires of the flesh. Abstain from the passion of the flesh, which he says wage war against your soul. So it's not just your behavior, not just outward actions, not just, decisions and things like that. It's your passions. That's where you're going to find your idols, is in the realm of your passions.
Right.
So as you're trying to understand what are the idols of my heart, what are the idols in my life, or the things that could become, just the things that could potentially become idols in your heart and life, you got to look to your passions. You got to look to the realm of your strongest desires. What do you want the most? That's something you should think about. If you're wanting to repent of them, that's where you should look.
Yep. And still, like, to try to be more practical, even like if there is sin in your life, when there is sin in your life, and we all have to deal with it, we all have sin in our lives, there is an idol in the heart, or idols in the heart. When there is sin, there is idolatry. And I think that's the important thing to understand. So, like, we have to uproot the desires and the idolatry along with the sinful action that we are struggling with. Those have to be dealt with. And so we need to pray, God, change my heart, work on the area of my desires, not just what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So if we don't do that, we're not going to experience any sort of lasting change or victory over sin. The most common example is like pulling weeds. You can chop them off, but if you don't get down and pull the whole root out, the thing's going to grow back. And I
hate weeds.
I think we all hate weeds, and that is why they are part of the curse. But it's a good example, right? You got to get down to the part you can't see.
To the root.
The part you can't see, other people can't see, only God sees. And you got to pull that thing out by His grace, by the Spirit.
Yeah.
Right.
That's a good word, and often neglected word. We tend to know what our sins are. We don't, I don't think, have nearly as good of a grasp oftentimes on the reasons why those are our sins, Yep. So as John says, 1 John, at the end of 1 John, let us keep ourselves from idols, not just let us not sin outwardly, but let us keep ourselves from idols. That's a good word.
It is. Anything else you want to say here?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I think I'm good.
We could keep going.
Unless you want to keep talking about my responsibility to make you feel not so skinny.
Doing a great job.
What about your responsibility to make me not feel fat?
I mean, I've always tried to do that.
Gain some weight, man.
Oh, I just can't. It's a genetic problem. It's always a genetic problem.
It's my DNA.
I got stomach problems. All right, guys, thanks for joining us. This is a really serious topic, and hope that we'll all give consideration to it. Be ruthless with ourselves in terms of our desires and our hearts, and we'll grow, and our lives will bring glory to Christ as that happens. So see you next time. Thanks for joining us.